to the weary traveler in the thick of the struggle, that mental muddle from the daily juggle, signed up for work in the kingdom to find it seemingly in shambles. You chose the path full of brambles with trees all around, but not a forest to be found. This one's for you. So I really can't relate, admittedly. But I just have to speculate as to what a skilled sculptor must feel like as he stands before a large, untampered block of wood. So overwhelmingly underwhelming, and yet, I bet he stands there with an almost giddy half grin, because he knows it'll soon be time for him to roll up his sleeves, and he sees that there's something beautiful in there, somewhere. And so it's time to get to work. But it's that kind of work that's worth the dirt and the hurt. Like even as he has sawdust stinging his earthly eyes, his vision is not blurred or deterred from the beauty of that final prize. It's to the point that the giddiness and the grittiness are inexplicably, inextricably intertwined. You can't fully have the former without the latter. For instance, at present, there's that splinter, and it's annoying, pestering, infected and festering, yet viewed under the shadow of that final product, he sees that that small wood chip was actually a measuring stick to the depth of his contentment. Like the further down it once pierced his skin, the wider now that triumphant grin as he sits to reminisce and contemplate the cost. He finds that most all of the intrinsic value of his artwork would be lost if it was simply brought about by a few snaps of his unscraped fingers. So he decides he'll take the mess. Because while the momentary stress is rarely wanted, it's always needed if there will be any real meaning to that final step-back moment of evaluation and proclamation that it is finished and it is good. It is finished and it is good. You know, I just have to speculate. Like, did those words resonate within the soul of the pre-incarnate Christ as he considered that splintery manger and all that it represented, the danger, or becoming a stranger and leaving all of the heavenly luxuries he'd known, stepping down off that royal throne to experience earth, to know what it's like to lay in hay and to inhale dust. I mean, he hasn't dealt with dirt like this since day 6 when he was extracting ribs and making dust. Inhale. But the waters have gotten awfully muddy since that day. Because see, the dust decided to go its own way. And the infinite power that was theirs as the Almighty's servant, they willingly relinquished to a delinquent serpent. And he's been slithering around for quite some time now, bruising heels and such. A little too much. But there's a plan in place to get his head crushed. But the plan requires that somebody get knocked around a bit. But you know, I've seen running backs on the sideline all but begging to get hit for the love of the game. And I believe in those pre-foundational deliberations, there was no hesitation. Our Savior's reaction was the same. Put me in, coach. I was made for this. Although I guess he was never really made, but he knew that almost straight out of the womb, he'd be dodging murder attempts, but he could not be swayed. Or that he'd face the day-to-day carpentry work that was gritty and mundane, or that he'd face the aches and pains of wandering from town to town, not a dollar to his name, and deal with messy human beings. to know what it's like to be betrayed. And even if he had to die, he was ready to count that as gain. And yes, this plan required perfect execution. But after an analysis of the cost and the benefit, the numbers were tallied and there was no deficit. That bottom line came out in black. Worth it. But in order for us to receive our true profit, he had to bleed red as he absorbed our debt. Because like a loving father kneeling beside his dying child's hospital bed, he pled, couldn't it be me instead? And thankfully, that plea was stronger than the one in Gethsemane, where we see just how badly he did and did not want to go through with the plan. But for the joy set before him, he endured the cross, scorning its shame and all of its loss. And as he hobbled up Golgotha's hill towards that tree, through stinging, bloodshot eyes, I believe he saw much more than those underwhelming death beams. He saw you and me, walking free, and freely walking into his presence. As he hooked himself to an IV of God's wrath, he was gaining for us his acceptance. And from now till eternity, we'll be singing our praises to him who is worthy, not to an unsympathetic, out-of-touch king, because our God got dirty. From the manger to the cross, our skilled sculptor rolled up his sleeves before that wood, and he carved out infinitely valuable artwork, and it was gritty and messy and unbearable and good.